Day 9 of our journey here in Svalbard. Tomorrow is disembarkation day and we are caught out in a dreary grey day. So I'm sitting here with my friends Simon and Thomas and taking the opportunity to just have a little bit of a conversation about inspiration. I have found on this journey that I've learned a ton from Thomas and I've learned a ton from Simon. I think that's just how it goes through in a workshop. You learn from your colleagues. I've learned a ton also from the fantastic participants that we've had on this journey. But I think we've seen perhaps an even more interesting kind of, because I'm a generalist nature photographer, Thomas very much landscape, right? Simon very much wildlife, and I think...
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I'm officially identifying as a wildlife photographer.
He drank the Kool-Aid. He recognized it's much cooler to be a wildlife photographer.
The artist formerly known as Thomas.
Exactly. Yeah, I've transitioned and I am a fully fledged birder and wildlife enthusiast / photographer.
Well, okay, well, we've had these transformational journeys together before. When we were in Nepal, you felt that the big landscapes were not longer for you, right?
Yeah, only so many mountains you can put your camera and shoot.
I still like the mountains.
No, I do. But when you're subject to it for weeks on end and you're desperate for some change of scenery, some more space, I feel like Nepal was a very claustrophobic environment because you're always just surrounded by big peaks. And yeah, no, don't get me wrong, of course, I look back on it with fond memories, but photographically speaking, I was yearning for something else.
Something simpler.
Yeah, and I just couldn't find it. It was constantly big black mountain, hazy light, with a distant snow-capped peak, and I just thought,
I do think there's a calmness and a simplicity in that, but that's a completely different discussion that I guess we already had when we were in Kathmandu trying to record that absolutely chaotic interview we did there. But anyway, let's focus on this journey. Like, we've been here surrounded by gorgeous landscapes, gorgeous wildlife. Like, I think I've had my best boat-based Svalbard journey ever on this journey. We've had great weather, great conditions, great wildlife. And Simon, you've been forced to kind of shoot quite a bit of landscapes on this. How's that been for you? And have you been inspired by someone? And
Oh, I have. Something that really struck me during this journey is how many infinite number of ways there are to view a scene and pick a scene out, especially with long lenses, with all the mountainous landscape and just picking out little micro landscapes in the distance and watching everyone else's photos and seeing them at work. You recognize there's an infinite number of ways to view a scene. So you're never gonna run out of inspiration if you can just open your mind and see other people at work. And I've just been watching other people's photos. It's been fantastic to see them and to see the little pieces that you picked out of scenes and so on. And of course, we've been talking about this in wildlife photography, having a sense of place and being able to put part of the scene in the background to demonstrate the environment in which wildlife lives. There's nothing like having big mountains in the background to put in the back of a walrus or a polar bear shot to just show the extreme vastness of the environment, and it just makes for wonderful photos.
I think you mentioned here, though, that at one point in your photographic development that you felt that you wanted to put more composition into your wildlife shots, and you actually went out purposefully shooting landscapes to do that, right?
I did. You know, you start in wildlife photography, and first you're just happy to get a wildlife subject and get it in the frame. Then you're happy to get it somewhat sharp, and then you get a bird on a stick, I call it. You know, just a clean subject with on a perch, and you think that's pretty good for a while. And I still take photos like that if it's a beautiful subject and a beautiful branch or something. But after a while, you recognize that you take more photos of the same, and they start looking the same. Yeah. And so going out purposefully and learning landscape photography to learn about different types of light and leading lines and patterns and so on was great for me, in that I could go back to wildlife photography and apply those same principles to wildlife and get better wildlife photos.
Oh, that's a fair point. Have you felt more excited about landscapes, being surrounded by these incredible landscapes we've been surrounded by?
I have. It's been just amazing to be able to have environments it's easier to get into the scene. Where I live, we've got trees in the background and so on, but we don't have big mountains and so on. So just having the vastness of landscape and some open terrain to be able to put it in the back of your subjects. And on boats, you've got a little bit more flexibility sometimes with the Zodiacs to get the angle you want as well. So that's been a great combination.
have you guys felt any competitive streak? I know you had a photo competition in Longyearbyen before we set off.
Oh, that wasn't a competition.
Was that a competition?
No, that was a challenge.
But who won?
There was no winner or loser because we didn't have the images judged. We just had to walk around. We walked around Longyearbyen together. It was more of a chat, get to know each other, and let's try and grab a couple of images. Oof, that was tough.
It was hard. You know, some towns, it's hard to take pretty photos in town, and it was clear blue sky and bright sun for the mountainous landscape around town. So it was hard to. But
Spring in Longyearbyen is dirty as well. It's just this dust everywhere.
Well, it's an Arctic mining town, industrial, dirty, just beautiful people, fantastic shops, amazing coffee. Oh, hello, amazing coffee. Ugly as sin. It's like such an ugly town.
But they have tried to brighten it up with the colourful houses.
Oh,
at
yeah, no,
least.
some colourful houses and nice. But photographically speaking, it's challenging. It's interesting though because the town itself is actually surrounded by immense beauty. So the challenge of photographing Longyearbyen, it's ironic that probably our best images were shots, not of Longyearbyen, but of the surrounding mountains. And of course the frustration of not being able to walk any further than like 2 kilometers, otherwise you're then breaking the polar bear law. Yeah. So,
Not so much law as, own self-preservation and I don't want to freaking die today kind of feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you? How have you enjoyed the environment? Because you've been here before. When you come to a location multiple times, are you able to add knowledge to what you learned before and keep advancing?
I think so, absolutely. Starting looking at the landscapes, I think the more you visit a place, the more you hone in your senses on what you really like about it. First time I came here, it was all about the big scenes, the big mountains, really like taking it all in and slowly but surely also seeing the smaller details. For me, the Arctic is about a fragility that exists up here, but it's also an immensity and a foreverness that you get here. Like the Arctic feels like it will last forever. It's so solid, it's so cold, it's so frozen, it's so eternal. But the reality, obviously, is that none of that is true anymore. It is melting, it is changing rapidly. And how do you kind of depict that? How do you feel that? How do you see these subtle things before they're gone? And that's something that I feel more and more in touch with every time I come here, because you notice it. You notice the light across the glacier. You notice, I shot some really simple scenes that the first time I came here I would never have thought about because I would have focused on the big and the bold. So that definitely has changed. And on the wildlife side, of course you take the opportunities that you get and you shoot long lens, you shoot try to do some portraits, you try to do some environmental shots. But I have noticed, especially on my walrus photography on this journey, that I'm shooting it a little bit differently, trying to capture something about the emotions in the animals, or at least how I would imagine their emotions, and try to portray it and try to get the images to spell out that emotions. Whereas the first time I saw a walrus, I'm like, holy shit, look at this thing, I just want to get it in frame and get it sharp and all these things that you said, right? So I do think it evolves. So the more you know about the subject, the more you can tell its story, the more you can really get it out, right? I think that's it's a beautiful thing. I think we all inspire, we all change, and I think, seeing Thomas being so excited about wildlife photography is so cool. I think it's contagious. Like, your passion for birds. I am not a birder, but I have over 1,000 images of birds in my portfolio from this journey. Sure, I'm going to cull that heavily and get rid of a lot of them, but I've shot more gulls than I have before in my life, and I would never have shot a gull hadn't you been here. So you definitely inspired me to get those gulls. And we've worked together for 7-8 years now, so we've shot a lot together, but seeing your transformation on this journey is so freaking cool.
It's exciting. I mean, I never thought I would be so excited about a guillemot. Yeah. Let alone a fulmar or a glaucus gull.
Glaucus gull.
Glaucus gull. Apparently the biggest gull without black tips. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. I learned that from Simon d'Entremont.
Kittiwakes, common eiders, king eyed. Yeah, I'm a birder now.
There you go. He's talking the talk.
Next time I come back here, I'm going to be able to point out every single species.
Perfect.
Orcs, little orcs,
Yeah.
puffins, you name it.
And you won't call them seagulls.
No.
Just call them gulls,
Gulls.
right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And we learn a lot about that. I think that's cool. Like coming home from here, is there something that you guys are really taking with you? Something that you're like, this is what Svalbard meant to me. This is, you know, why I want to return, or why I want to see more of perhaps Arctic landscapes or whatever it may be.
Definitely. So I think over the years I've developed a kind of joy of abstract, minimalist landscape photos. You know, patterns, simplistic scenes, and that works wonderful if you can drop in an animal. Yeah. So as a style, I don't see much of. A lot of wildlife photography, you see either the animal filling the frame, and you do see some broader scenes with the landscape, with the animal, like more of a environmental wildlife, but you don't see much that really push the boundaries of abstract and wild. Well, I suppose you see close-up texture shots of wildlife, but I'm talking like abstract landscapes with wildlife.
Done with wildlife.
And I think I've got 2 or 3 of those from this trip, and I look at it and I think, well, that's one of my landscape images, but then you look closely and there's an Arctic fox.
Yeah, sitting somewhere.
Yeah, just somewhere in there, a few pixels. Yeah. And that excites me.
Yeah, that's a wise strategy, I think. It's like you say, it's an underdeveloped area of wildlife photography to have more artistic visions of what, rather than just showing the environment to tell a story of nature and behavior, putting some real art into it.
It's taking it to the next level. So you've got your wildlife photography, fill the frame with the animal. Done. Okay, I need an environmental landscape. So you find a nice scene, balanced mountains, trees in the foreground, there's the animal perched on a rock. Done. The next stage is, right, okay, I've found this fantastic bit of the landscape that works with its layers and its repetition, its geometry. Now I need an animal in that.
So you're also upping the
complexity,
yeah,
the difficulty.
exactly.
So in order to succeed in that, you either A, you're going to have to be very lucky, or B, you're going to have to go to an environment that really lends itself to that type of photography, which this does with the Arctic light, the minimalist, the open spaces. And I imagine if I was to go to a desert environment, that would also be quite a good place to work. I'm not so sure, you know, the Highlands of Scotland will lend itself necessarily to that style, but with the right light and the right conditions, you could get lucky.
Layering, maybe a stag on a mountaintop or a hilltop or something like that.
I have that shot, yeah. Layers of light and shadow with a stag. I do have that, but it's not quite abstract enough. It's still a bit too pedestrian, a bit too obvious. It's finding that sweet spot.
I can see snow and sand.
Yeah, good ones.
Are good environments for you for that, because they can kind of make shapes and
It's
patterns.
like that analogy, are you a fisherman or are you a hunter when you look for your photos? Like, do you patiently stand there and you reel it in and you cast it out and you wait and you reel it in, or are you running around hunting for your photos? In wildlife photography, I think that's even more true, and you have to have even more patience than you do in landscape photography. And I guess people will wait years to get a specific photo of a specific species, or do they? I don't know.
They can sometimes. I mean, sometimes you envision a shot in your head, and you just can't get it because the environment or the subject doesn't play ball and doesn't arrive when you need them to. So
yeah, I was once waiting 48 hours to capture a shot of a jaguar in a hide. I did not see a jaguar. I was just sitting there doing nothing for 2 days, and that's your future, Thomas. Are you excited?
Oh, yeah, because I'll just do landscapes whilst I wait. And hybrid photography. Shoot what you want, that's it. I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself too much. I mean, we've been here for 9 days and essentially looking for polar bears for 9 days. We've seen them once, which was amazing. So I guess that's the life of a wildlife photographer, right?
Tis, yeah. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not you're going to reverse engineer what I did by taking on landscape photography and taking better wildlife photos as a result, whether or not you taking on wildlife photography will impact your landscape photography in any way.
It will influence it for sure. I'm certain of that. I mean, it already has. If you look at my sleeping fox image, that to me, that's a landscape I would take. The fact that if you look closely, there is a sleeping fox in it, then that's the kind of influence that's going to, take place on my wildlife photography.
Mm.
Very cool. What's next for you guys now? We're going home tomorrow. What do you have planned for future journeys?
Botswana in 3 weeks, which I'm sure will come along very, very quickly. So off onto the Chobe River and photographing elephants in the water and so on, which would be great. And
Amazing contrast from the Arctic to the African savanna, or delta that will be actually.
That's right. And then off to the Okavango Delta, and maybe get some leopards in the trees and so on. And then the central Kalahari, where having beautiful, in the wintertime, having watering holes, which will attract game, and having a dugout blind right next to it for the low angle, right above the water. You get the reflections, animals drinking, great fun.
Wow, that would be something. What about you?
Well, I'm going to cancel all my plans and go with Entremont to Africa. It sounds amazing. I love a good safari. So I'm going to Ecuador to visit this photographer called Jonas Borrell. Yeah, I'm visiting you in Ecuador just for a few days, and then I'm flying north from Ecuador into the USA to go storm chasing, which is going to be hopefully going to be jam-packed excitement and something I've never done before, brand new experience, which is always the most exciting thing for me.
Oh, I can't even imagine the feeling. It must be like chasing a freaking tornado.
Yeah, I get a feeling it's a bit like a lot of driving and a lot of waiting around. You know, I think it's going to be not too dissimilar from wildlife photography. You know, you're looking for the thing, and then when it appears, it's all hands on deck. Go, 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 shoot it over quickly, move on. But we'll see. Like I say, no idea, but
No idea.
damn, it sounds exciting.
Feels like you're gonna need a really good playlist. There's a lot of driving, good snacks in the car, and
Well, we'll be heading to the deep south, maybe. I'm not sure. My geography's not too good, but heading south, so it'll be barbecue, Texas barbecue. Yeah, I think we'll go to Oklahoma. What's going to be there? I don't know. It's good.
good adventure.
Yeah, very good adventure. And I would say with photography as well, I work best in new and exciting places. So traveling to somewhere that's unfamiliar will bring out the best in my photography. I'll be highly motivated, shooting everything. So, you know, don't spend your money on gear, spend your money on travel.
Always travel. Guys, first of all, thank you for being here in Svalbard with me. We've had an absolute wonderful adventure. The adventure is not over. We're rolling on the ocean, and hopefully we had a chance to spot something more today, even though we can't see very much of anything outside. Thank you for that, and thanks for being part of this little video. And folks, that's it. Thanks so much for watching this little episode of I don't know what, and I'll see you another time. Thanks, boys.
See ya.